Welcome to the ATP Project. You're your host, Nicole and Steve. And my very first question before we start is, what colour is the table we're using? Because I can't see it.
I know.
What's going on?
It's covered in papers.
It's covered.
We literally have got so many papers in front of us. I don't even know where we're going to start.
We're talking about all things protein today.
Yeah.
And everybody eats protein every day because we have to. We have just gone nuts with the research on it because there's some, we've got some basic information that we're going to cover, but there's also some slightly controversial information. There's also information that I don't think most people would know about proteins themselves because there's so much to it. Is a vegan protein? What about amino acids? We're going to cover amino acids in a different context, like the roles of each of the 20-odd amino acids. But we're going to talk about them in the context of protein today. And the first thing we have to decide is basically what is protein. And, you want to sort of give us a definition of what protein is, because it's not exactly it's not this stuff that builds your muscles only, is it? What does it do?
Well, protein does a lot of things in our body. So proteins are biopolymetric structures.
Wow.
Composed of amino acids, which there are 20 that have been identified that the humans use as we as humans use.
Yes.
As well as
I know what
humans.
I know what you mean.
So it's super important. They do a lot of different things. So a lot of people think protein, muscle growth. But protein does a lot more in our body than just building muscle. And it's vital for us to survive. If we don't have protein, we will not live very long.
No. I mean, they're called essential amino acids, not you should take them amino acids. They're essential.
Yeah.
And there's some that are not essential and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
But what are some of the other roles of proteins in the body, and what do they do that's a bit weird that people wouldn't know about?
Yeah. So there's 7 types of proteins.
Oh my God. God, 7 types. Okay.
So, and people will know these names, but they might not have thought of them as proteins. Within the body. So we have antibodies, contractile proteins, enzymes.
Enzymes that do things in the body,
That's right. Hormonal proteins, structural proteins, storage proteins, and transport proteins.
Transport proteins.
And we can go into a little bit about a couple of examples of what they are.
Like transport proteins are lipoproteins, like LDL, HDL. That stands for high density lipoprotein. So they're forms of proteins with fats attached to them. So they transport fats around because fats are insoluble.
Exactly.
So there's all these different things. Enzymes are things that do things in the body that activate chemical reactions. So that's very important. Break down foods and all that sort of stuff.
Storage proteins. So ferritin, for instance, is a storage protein.
Stores iron. So transport proteins, as you said, and obviously antibodies. Tell us about the contractile proteins.
So they're muscles. So we all know actin, myosin work in the muscles. So
I just flexed my massive bicep. This boulder came out.
I know, so it knocked me off my chair.
Lee Priest style, Arnold Schwarzenegger type.
Exactly.
So I picked 2 old guys or older guys.
I just love the way that Matt just cracked up as soon as you did that.
I know. Last one up when I do a bicep thing.
I know.
Terrible.
I know. So basically protein does a lot more than just build muscle. And all of those functions are super, super important for our survival. So protein is really, really important.
Yeah, and you mentioned these things called amino acids. We're going to cover the roles of them.
Yeah.
But there's 3 classes of amino acids. There's essential, conditionally essential, essential, and non-essential. Now the essential aminos are a little bit self-explanatory, but you want to talk about the essential amino acids in proteins. Like what are they?
So there are 20 amino acids, as I said, that humans use. 9 of them are essential for us for survival, and we can't. Our body doesn't make them, so we have to get them through our diet. So they're vitally important. Essential amino acids, so histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine.
Amazing.
So they're the essential amino acids. As I said, we need to get them from our diet.
Yes.
When we'll talk about what foods have these in them and what foods that we might need to look at combining.
But you need them. There's non-negotiable. You need them in your diet.
You need them in there. There's nothing. Nothing.
Or you can supplement them, like I'm doing right now. There's
That's
essential amino acids in there.
There is.
But I won't go into details about that.
No.
Now, there's an interesting term, conditional essential.
I keep saying
oh, my God.
Steve.
Maybe I should have cut back on
Maybe you shouldn't have had that drink this morning.
A bit weird. So they're conditionally. What does that mean?
Conditionally essential means that under certain conditions, we will need. Our body may not be able to make these.
Yes.
So starvation, malnutrition, inborn metabolic, issues. So those that we have 6 of those: arginine, cysteine, glutamine, glycine, proline, and tyrosine.
Wow. Okay.
I've actually highlighted cysteine, glutamine, and glycine for a reason.
Yeah. Why did you
And
do
then
that?
the methionine in the essential amino acids. I highlighted all of those because as we move more into talking about plant-based proteins.
Oh yeah.
So cysteine, glutamine, glycine, and methionine are all involved in the phase 2 detoxification of our liver.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, and we can go into this a little bit further down the track, but I see more a lot of issues in people following plant-based diets who perhaps don't have a balanced plant-based diet to get all those essential amino acids in there. A lot of times have more issues with women, I think more so because I see more women.
Yeah.
Hormonal imbalances, mood imbalances, things like that, toxic exposure, because if they're not getting these amino acids in there, their phase 2 detoxification pathway will not function properly.
No.
They can get recirculation of a lot of these, metabolized hormones and excess environmental toxins and things. I just wanted to point that out because we need these proteins to help with that our liver detoxification.
It's really amazing because I remember when we used to do, and I'm talking about 90s stuff here, where we used to do detoxes and we put people on water fasts.
Yes.
And it's like that was the great detox thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't know any about phase 1 and phase 2. But proteins are a detoxification tool.
That's right.
And what we'd do is we'd starve people and they get really sick. And we used to call it a healing crisis.
Yes.
And so they just get really sick.
Yes.
Remember Hippocrates, above all do no harm. Forget that.
No,
we'd make these people sick.
Yeah.
And we just thought, it's a great healing process. What we were doing was stopping phase 2 because we were starving amino acids.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, some of them are essential, like methionine.
Yeah.
And they would just dry up on those. And of course, because they weren't eating a thing.
Yeah.
And they get really sick, and we used to call it a healing crisis. They get the detoxification. They have to come out through the skin or lungs. They had smelly breath. All this crap happened to them.
Because their liver couldn't do it, so the body's trying to get it out in other ways.
Yeah, we used to have this massive organ called the liver that we ignore with detoxification.
Yes.
And all we did was rely on the kidneys. And you got to remember that these were just water fasts. So there was no fibre for the bowels to detoxify. So there was no vitamins to help with any of the enzymatic functions of the proteins you've talked about.
Yeah.
And we used to and we used to starve them of absolutely everything. And we used to starve them of fats. And fats are required for the gallbladder to be stimulated to get rid of the bile from the liver to detoxify that.
Yep.
So we had none of that going on, and that's why people would get really sick.
Yeah.
And we didn't know this. We just called it a healing crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So it's one of these old things that now hopefully, and then I remember in the early days they discovered proteins were very good for detoxification, late 90s. And I worked for a company, I won't mention the name of the product, but we couldn't think of a name, but it would I don't think it's around now. It was called thermophase detox.
No, I think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it might not be around now.
I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah.
But that was because it was thermogenic. We put CLA fat in it, and it was for phase 2 detox. And so we'd come up with this name, thermophase detox. So that's so it was a protein powder for detox.
Yeah.
Rice based. And again, it could be totally different now. So,
yeah.
but isn't that amazing that proteins? People don't think of that as people think of meat as like toxic or something.
Yeah.
Yet the amino acids in there, the essential aminos, and some of the conditionally essentials help with detox.
Yeah. Well, that's like all the juice fasts people do now.
Yeah.
For detoxification and cleansing.
Yeah.
Well, no, you really need the proteins in there for that phase 2 detox in the liver. So,
but also the juice fast is that they get rid of the fibre, so your bowels didn't work, and that's a great detox agent.
That's right, exactly.
It's the most bizarre thing.
It is.
So amino acids are great for detox, and proteins are great for detox.
Yeah.
So I mean that's absolutely incredible how they all work. Now we've gone through sort of what the types of proteins are. Now I guess the elephant in the room is where do we find proteins in the diet?
Yeah, okay. So protein, I mean, I guess a lot of people pretty much know all your animal-based meats, so chicken, beef, fish, those types of things, and then eggs, dairy. So anything animal-based protein, obviously, and then our plant-based proteins as well. So we do get proteins out of plants.
Yes.
So, but we can talk about what is a complete protein and what is an incomplete protein.
I know it's a tricky thing. So okay, we know there's complete proteins like the animal proteins. That's great, and you've got eggs and all that sort of stuff included. Now, and there's the omnivores, and then we've got the vegans and the vegetarians are three sort of classes, and often proteins are sort of highlighted in these particular people. So omnivores are like you and I that eat meat and vegetables, and then you've got the vegans that have no animal products, and then you've got the vegetarians, which could be lacto-ovo vegetarians, which means they get milk and they get, eggs.
Things,
So but the vegans are the ones that are, questionably low in protein. But so let's talk about those vegan proteins. I've got a big list here of where you get protein from. It's basically everywhere, but all proteins are not made equally, are they?
No. So a complete protein, I mean, most people probably know this, but a complete protein is one that contains all the 9 essential amino acids that, as we said, that you need to get from your diet because your body can't make them themselves.
Yeah.
So it contains all of them. So a meat will contain, a steak will contain 9. A piece of chicken will contain all 9. And then you have your plant-based proteins where you might have 5 of the 9 in one type of, say, a grain, or you might have 4 in a legume or vice versa. So it's not complete.
Yeah.
So therefore you have to combine or make sure, we will talk about that, the combination diet.
Yes.
Where you combine some plant-based products together to create a complete protein.
Yeah, and you don't have to have complete protein at every meal all day, every day.
You don't.
But it's good to get them eventually in a diet. Now, there are some studies on and I've picked on vegans a bit here, and what I've also done in your honour, because you're part German, is I've got
German.
2 German studies in this podcast today. Isn't that incredible?
That's awesome. The Germans are very, very forward-thinking in their
They're
research.
very forward-thinking. And I got a Dutch study here on vegans. So I tried to represent it through Europe because there wasn't many. There's one from Australia here, but we'll get to that one later. But what I did was look at the vegans and are they getting enough essential amino acids? So I got a couple of studies on here, and the Danish one's very interesting. Because I'll just read the conclusion. Many of the participants in this study failed to meet the daily protein intake requirements, both single days and on all 3 days. So, you're supposed to get amino acids a day. They said, okay, well, let's look at it over 3 days. And they sort of said, okay, well, let's just pool 3 days because that's how much your amino acid pools in the liver. And so what they did was they found that they were very deficient in a few amino acids, particularly lysine, leucine, and valine. Now, they're 2 of those are branched chains.
Yeah.
So great for growth. That's leucine and valine. Yeah. And lysine is very important too. So that they seem to be deficient in those 3 on this group based on this. So it doesn't mean every vegan's going to be deficient of those. That's what they're prone to being deficient in. So they found that even over 3 days there was a deficiency in those, and that's a little bit of a problem. So what they did, there's 40 of them there, and they did a cross-sectional study, which is what you do for this type of thing. And they measured, they just said eat away, and they analysed exactly what they ate. Yeah. So it's okay to be deficient in protein for a day or 2, but 3 days is problematic. So with vegans, we've got to be a little bit careful of those, particularly those 3 essential amino acids.
Yeah, we do.
So that was, I found that pretty interesting. So
it's interesting. And I've got a little bit of info on leucine and how we can sort of go through that.
Sure.
We can go through the RDIs and things like that.
Well, you mentioned RDIs, which is recommended daily intake. What are the RDIs for protein?
So the RDI for protein in US and Australia, it's pretty much it is the same. It's 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight.
Yeah.
So, but what we have to remember is that an RDI is the minimal amount to maintain health, not the optimal amount to maintain health. So 0.8 I think is very low.
Yeah.
I usually, and I think we spoke about this, we both are on the side of higher for protein intake. And then there are populations that will need more protein than others, and we can talk about those populations as well.
Oh, it's all
and how
sorts.
that changes throughout your life as well. You know, some people might think you might need less protein as you get older, but you actually need a lot more.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So I have a couple of little charts here.
They're fascinating. Run through them for me. Like these are what you need for protein per day.
So these are optimal daily protein intakes for different populations. So so this one is these are optimal daily protein intakes for healthy we laughed about this, sedentary adults.
Yeah, we said all right.
So basically,
disclose.
I guess you could say someone that works in an office that doesn't do much exercise and sits all day
like
working, like us. But we exercise, Steve.
I did. I went to the gym this morning.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I'll say what I said. I said, why is there such a thing as a healthy sedentary person? Because they wouldn't be healthy if they're sedentary. So anyway, so I'll get that off my chest. I'll get some emails about that, but that's all right. Yeah. But I just think we shouldn't be sedentary. We're at 200 odd muscles. What are they for? Sitting on the couch?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I could classify my career as sedentary because I do sit in front of a screen all day talking to clients.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I have a treadmill, which I jump up and I get up every hour and jump on the treadmill.
You do it every hour?
Yeah, I do it every hour now. I've changed it, because I sit so much. I train in the morning and then I'll do an hour's work and then I'll jump up on the treadmill for 20 minutes and then I'll go back to work, and if I see a client, after my client, I'll jump on it for another 20 minutes.
Because people don't know, but you're still in practice. You know, Nicole Brown, naturopathy, if you Google that, you're actually a practicing naturopath.
I am.
So I guess during... You know, because you do it over Zoom, you can be anywhere in the country. I guess you could look great from here up, and then you could just give your runners on and whatever leggings, and you could do your run between. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah. And let's say I don't run every time I jump on the treadmill, but I do walk if I'm not doing a little bit of a run. It's also good because you can't, sitting is the new smoking. And also, structurally, you have to get up and move. Yeah. So I do that. And after each meal, I also do a brisk walk because that helps with blood sugar balance. So.
It does.
But anyway, that's just me.
It's remarkable. Okay, so these healthy sedentary adults.
Yeah. So we'll go with, let's look at, the average female, the average male weight would roughly be around, the average female would be, look, I'm going to say 57. Let's go 57 kilos. Okay. Could be up to whatever, but 57 kilos. So the lower end of protein intake would be 68 grams per day, which I think is quite low. Yeah. And then the high end would be 102 grams per day, which I think is not that much. No. And these are obviously relative to your body weight. So say then you're looking at a 68 kilo woman. Mm-hmm. So the lower end would be 82, the higher end 122 grams of protein. Yeah. So that would be, and we'll talk about at the end, we'll talk about how to get in this amount of protein throughout the day, because some people may struggle with that. So I think that's a pretty okay. Sort of the higher end is probably where I would be sitting, where I'd be recommending.
Just people think of steak, and steak is about 20% protein. So if you eat a half a kilogram of steak throughout the whole day, I'm oversimplifying this, then that would give you about 122 grams of protein.
Yeah, exactly.
So lean steak. Yeah. Half a kilo. God, I eat that for dinner sometimes.
Oh, see, I couldn't do half a kilo.
Oh, I do. Easy.
I can't.
I've had a kilo steak before.
Have you?
Oh,
God, did you get the meat sweats and the...
No, I felt fine. It's actually thanks to my mother-in-law. Once we went out for dinner, and we both got this half kilo rumps, and then she sort of, didn't eat it and gave it to me, so I had a kilo of steak down. And I didn't feel that like I must have some sort of ability to eat
you must have.
steak, because I didn't feel anything like I was full, but I wasn't bloated or anything.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Usually eat maybe 150 grams. 150 grams at a sitting, I would eat something like that.
That's like my iPhones. iPhone.
That's one meal though. So that would be around about, I think it'd probably be something around about 40-ish grams, something like that. So that puts it into perspective. So then optimal daily protein intake for athletes.
Yes, that's it. That's me.
So let's say a 68 kilo athlete, female probably more likely, some men as well. So the lower end would be 95.
Pathetic.
Yeah. And the higher end, 136. Better, yeah. And say for a male who's maybe 90 kilos, you'd be looking at minimal 127 and up the higher end 181 grams.
Yeah, I like the higher end because, and so roughly you double it. You double your weight in kilograms and turn it into grams. Yeah. So if I'm 100 kilos, I'd eat 200 grams of protein a day. Yeah. And that's for an athletic person. And that's about right. I mean, unless you're trying to build, which is what a lot of people are listening to. And, like, what did Ronnie Coleman have when he was building his plane?
A comical amount of protein per day.
What is a comical amount?
I don't know.
Like let's say a scoop of, here would add whey protein. Scoops are about 30 grams. Like, what's a comical amount of that? 5 scoops?
No.
Is that comical?
I was just thinking of the reel you sent me the other day about the protein. Remember that? And the guy was like, just add it was on Instagram. Add a scoop of protein, and then you add and by the end of it, you added like 30 scoops of protein.
And then right at the end of the mix, he goes, now, when you weren't looking,
I put in some more protein,
and then he tasted it and he goes, just needs a little bit more protein. He put some more in.
I know. These are the things we do.
That's a Ronnie Coleman. Yeah, that's all. We send weird shit to each other. But he would have had, let's say it was 5 scoops of 30 grams of protein. That's probably conservative for him. That's 150 grams of protein in a supplement form. Forget his meals. He used to have 7 or 8. So these bulkers can really, go nuts with the protein, and all right, that's excessive. It's excessive. Yeah. But and there's a lot of questions about excessive protein and what does it do. Like, in my day, protein was considered something you didn't want to have too much of because it harms your kidneys, harms your bones. And luckily there's been studies on that now about, if you have a lot of protein, what does it do to your bones and that sort of thing. And so I've got a study here, one of the many I could get rid of off the table.
Take one of them away.
Yeah, phew. This is a journal of cachexia, sarcopenia and muscle. I'd never heard of that journal, 2023 journal. And what they did was they picked on older people here. And they said, okay, they did a longitudinal study, which means you look at them over a long period of time, and they just say, eat what you want. And they broke them up into quarters. Okay, and what they said is the first quartile has low protein, second, third, higher, and the fourth quartile had the most protein naturally in their diets. They weren't supplemented, they just watched them. And they found the people that had the higher protein levels, like the highest, had the best bones. And so it was quite linear and quite, you look at the data and it's quite equivocal that's what you found. So the more protein they had, the better their bones were as they aged. So you said it earlier that as you age, you may want to have more protein.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So what they found, and I'll just read the conclusion, an association between total and animal protein intake with higher bone mineral density was found. Now, animal protein in the old days when I studied was bad for your bones. It used to leach calcium out, and it doesn't, of course, because these are old people, which is going to leach if it's going to leach.
That's right.
And they had an association, which means positive, not an inverse. It means positive. So the more protein they had, whether animal or vegetable, the more their bones got. Bones are made of protein as well.
That's right.
And collagen and all that sort of stuff. So
balance everything. Extremes in any direction is not good. So an extreme, meat diet and an extreme plant-based diet, either end of the scale is going to be bad. We just want good balance all across the board.
I agree.
No matter what you do.
And we know humans are quite dynamic with what they can eat. We look at the Inuits, and during winter, they eat pretty much 100% animal foods because they have to. And they survive, reproduce, and go on with life. And then we've got people in the Amazon that eat largely vegetarian when they can come across a sort of thing the other day when they killed a monkey and ate it. But I know it's not what I would have done. But they and usually they didn't because they're little buggers escape, but they get them eventually. Okay, I know it's pretty great. It was pretty
getting worse.
It was pretty.
Just all the vegans out there.
It was a chimpanzee too, and they're our cousins.
Oh, God.
It's like it was pretty bad. I didn't kill it, but they did, and that's what they do. But normally they would have a vegetarian style diet.
Yeah,
they eat piranhas too in this particular.
They eat piranhas as well.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, and they could. But they were largely vegetarian, and they were thriving and surviving. They had bigger problems to worry about in the bush and that, with snakes and spiders and all the other crap they used to get them. But so humans are quite dynamic.
Very adaptable.
That's why we are, I'll say the number one species, it sounds egotistical, but that's why we can survive in extremes around the world.
Yeah.
From the equator to the poles.
Yeah.
We're there and we do all right. Now, nowadays we've got modern things, which means we can move food around and we can, but from a protein point of view, we still need essential amino acids. Now, whether they're vegan from sources or whatever, but typically in the Caucasian sort of European, we can lack amino acids and certain vitamins. Not part of the thing, but B12 is a classic one. But Yeah, so humans are quite dynamic, and we started eating meat about 1 million years ago when we started really hunting and gathering.
Yes.
So we've been eating meat for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But even before that, monkeys nowadays still are sometimes carnivorous when they can. But we have got 3 different sets of teeth in our head. We've got eyes at the front of our head, so we're predatory, and we've got a digestive system which sets up things, and we have an essential thing in our body called cholesterol. If we don't eat it, we make it.
Yeah.
And that's another kettle of fish. So meat is not a no-no. We can certainly argue about the processing of meat and the nitrates in things and the preservatives and that.
Quality of the meat's a whole nother episode, isn't it? We're talking about just basic, unprocessed, the best quality meat. And also, let's just premise, this podcast isn't either a meat camp or or a plant-based camp. We're not saying one's better than the other. No. We're just laying out all the evidence and how, if you are one or the other, how to maintain a good protein intake and balanced intake for the best health, for your optimal health. So we don't have no bias to either or. Infants
can't be vegans, though.
No.
Because they're taurine, they can't make taurine until a certain age. I can't remember what that age is, but so they can't be vegan. And usually they're not because they breastfeed.
Well, I mean, there has been in the past, I think some stories came out with, people putting their infants on plant-based.
Oh, soy, yeah. That caused neurological,
become malnourished and sometimes even died. So, so definitely not for infants.
No.
Yeah. So
now you are talking about protein levels and that sort of thing, and so we've got to sort of look at what you need and what you're doing in your life, And if you are sedentary, let's say you are sedentary, our first advice would be to move. Yeah. But let's say you don't. You really don't need as much protein, because protein, if you have an excessive amount, can undergo what they call gluconeogenesis, which can turn into sugars.
That's interesting because, I have seen clients in the past that still diabetic, a type 2 diabetic. So they've gone ketogenic, I'll say that in air quotes because maybe not full ketogenic, or very low carb, and they're having their proteins and things like that. And their blood sugars aren't improving. Yeah. And that's because they're having high amounts of protein. They're quite sedentary, as you said. Yeah. So they're still getting that sugar. It's still converting to sugar through gluconeogenesis. So their blood sugars aren't improving. So that's an important point to make.
That is an important point. Yeah. The classic ketogenic diet is a fairly low protein diet.
Yeah, everyone thinks high protein.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not. It's high fat.
High fat diet.
Moderate
extraordinary.
Protein.
Yeah. And all these people, and we've done podcasts on carnivorous diets, purely carnivorous. And all these people say, you've got to exercise, got to exercise. And this is where protein match up with this. So if you're like us that do a bit of activity a day, probably, and remember, it's only a small percentage of our days. Like if we exercise for 5% of the day, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's about an hour.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
It's a lot for a lot of people. Yeah.
It's over an hour.
I do now that 5% of a day is an hour.
It's an over hour.
Yeah. Because, I don't think I think an hour is, I would do an hour minimum. I would say to someone, do an hour. Well, sorry, I take that back. If someone is just starting out, I usually recommend 20 to 30 minutes. But once you're fit, I would say an hour definitely.
Yeah.
As ideally,
yes.
And then a little bit maybe more depending on what you're doing, and then of course, but an hour isn't. I wouldn't consider it to be a lot.
No, but it's 5% of the day.
Yeah.
Like you think about it, 5% is 1/20th for those who are struggling with the maths now. 1/20th of 24 is over 1 hour.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So if you want to exercise for 3% of your day, then that's over 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it's about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, when people say I've got no time to exercise, it's only 3% of your day. Yeah. And, then you're going to have so much health improvement, sleep better. You're going to, we recorded a podcast yesterday, on sleep, and exercise was great to help you sleep.
Yeah.
So you'll sleep more efficiently.
Yeah.
So you'll actually make up that 3% in no time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's only 3%.
Yeah.
So these proteins, and you did mention kidneys before, and I can talk about kidneys here.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that people are concerned about is kidney function if you have too much protein.
Yeah, and what they found here, it's sort of like, and I was explaining it yesterday, this is from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. I'll summarise what it says basically. if you have kidney problems, then that's different. It's like if you had we had a staff member here whose child broke their wrist in 2 places.
Yeah.
I won't mention anything else. So their exercise is restricted on that wrist area because it'd be bad for them to exercise on that wrist. Now, yesterday, when his wrist wasn't broken, it'd be good to exercise using your hands and doing whatever. Yeah. So it depends on the individual. So you've got broken kidneys, chronic kidney disease, you need less proteins. But what they found was that among participants with impaired kidney function, a higher protein was associated with a higher mortality, whereas a lower protein was associated with higher mortality in those with normal kidney function. So the more protein you had, the less mortality you had.
Yeah.
Because it's essential. It's not essential. Like, you should try and... It's essential.
Yeah.
And we didn't write the rules.
No.
The rules of the human body are imprinted in our genes, and we need these amino acids. Now, this is a major study, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2021. Basically, the title says it all. It says dietary protein intake, kidney function and survival in a nationally representative cohort. So we've sort of confused the issue. Like, if you've got a broken leg, don't do squats.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a broken leg and you've got a good back, and do squats are very good for you.
That's right.
So it depends. If you've got a broken kidney, don't eat as much protein.
Yeah.
But if you've got a healthy kidneys, the protein seems to reduce your mortality.
That's right.
Your death.
Yeah,
mortality.
it's like anything, isn't it? Unless, of course, you've got polycystic kidney disease.
Yep.
Where ketogenic diet has been shown to be very good. So again, not high protein, but still protein in there. So, but you're spot on. It's if something's broken, then you don't do things that you would usually do to it if it wasn't broken.
No, exactly right. So it's very interesting. I found a paper here that contradicts that other paper that says you can get essential, and it's an Australian paper. And this is a sample of the meal. Now tell me, because
I know who sponsored this paper.
Yes. We'll get to that in a sec. But have a listen to this meal and tell me if you see anything wrong with it. Okay, the first day is you have basically 2 whole grain wheat biscuits with 4 strawberries, a milk, a slice of multigrain toast, and an egg.
Okay.
And for morning tea, you can have 6 apricot halves.
Okay.
For lunch, pita bread with a falafel, chickpea falafel, and hummus. Okay, I'm just skipping through. The afternoon thing is you have a banana, and then for dinner, you have 1 cup of cooked rice and some tofu and some vegetables. I mean, and then you have chocolate as a snack.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, how much carbohydrate is in that? And that's what they recommend as a sample vegetarian meal plan designed to meet the protein macronutrients for a 30 to 50-year-old woman.
A 30 to 50-year-old. So that's a very broad population as well.
That's what they pick. Now, that's to get protein, you have to eat all that sugar.
Yeah.
And carbohydrates, which turn into sugar.
Carbohydrates in there.
It's like flour or grains 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And then you got your apricots and you got your banana, which is, lots of sugar. And then you got your 1 cup of low-fat soy milk and chocolate powder. And it's like, and not collagen chocolate. This is like 10 grams of chocolate that's got 1.3 grams of protein.
Wow.
And it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have got some plant-based, obviously, you've got your chickpeas in there, you've got your tofu, so that's all fine. Yeah. But that carbohydrate content for the average person is very high. Very high. I mean, who was...
Oh, yeah.
So sanitarian health, or should we maybe not say that? I don't know.
Can we say that? Yeah, so this paper is in our references. So, I'm not saying I'm a fan of that because I think that's way too many sugars and carbohydrates for the diet. But it is a journal written in Australia done by professional dietetics. And, I mean, that's a little bit... Because if you recommended that to someone in your clinic, let's say you've got a 30 to 50-year-old woman and you give them that diet... their sugars
that's disastrous.
Disastrous.
Unless they're a high-performing athlete that can tolerate that many carbohydrates, and even then, not great. But yeah, so you can look up the paper and who was sponsoring it, because the company sponsoring it is involved in grain type products.
Correct. So don't believe everything. I mean, that's called critical thinking. Yeah, I'll get rid of that one.
Yeah, get rid of that one too.
That's critical thinking, and you've got to be a little bit careful of that because this is an Australian paper.
And look, that used to kind of be the standard sort of practice when you with diets back 20 years ago. Cereal for breakfast, with a bit of protein, high protein cereal, and then your sandwich, your wrap for lunch, and then your carbs for dinner. That used to be standard, and we know a lot better now.
We do.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, it's very interesting that and by the way, if you quickly look at that, there's very little methionine in that diet and branched chain amino acids, which are branched chain amino acids, isoleucine, leucine, valine. They're amino acids that are essential, and they're also branched chain. So it's not going to be good for athletes, that one either. So it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it is. So we went through a couple of just examples of what would be optimal, and then it changes if you obviously if you're an athlete, if you're trying to gain muscle, if you're trying to lose fat, it would change a little bit. But the RDI, the optimal ranges are still a lot higher than the RDI. So we will, as I said at the end, we can talk about what a day would look like to get your protein adequacy in there.
Yeah, we'll give them some
protein levels, even, should I say?
Absolutely, some diet ideas.
Yeah.
Now, what are anti?
So things? So I put this in.
It's like in science we talk about matter and we talk about antimatter.
Yeah.
And in like people say, how does something come from nothing? It's a big question in science.
Yeah.
Well, if you had a vacuum of space, right, and you took every molecule out of it and it just was a space, then matter would be created because you'd get matter and antimatter being created and then destroying each other again. And that's what happens in quantum physics. Yeah. And we know this. We can observe this. We can measure this. So matter is made and destroyed. Now, in protein, you can eat protein, but it can be taken out, can't it? By antimatter or anti-protein. What's all that about?
So I put this in there. So it sounds like we might be picking on people who are following plant-based diets or vegans. We're actually not. So the reason I put this in there is so that we can make sure that people following these plant-based diets are getting the right amino acid profiles in there so they can have optimal health on a plant-based diet. And I see a lot of people on vegan diets who really aren't sure about what to have, and so their diets are suboptimal, and therefore that's creating health issues for them. So the reason we explain all this is so that people can sort of work on improving the balance of their diet. So there's something called protein quality. Yeah. So protein quality is just determined by the bioavailability of the amino acid profile.
Right. Okay.
So bioavailability. So plant proteins have a much lower bioavailability because they do have these anti-nutrients. So trypsin inhibitors, phytates, tannins, and other anti-nutrients. And I know this is all across been across social media too. Anti-nutrients and vegetables are going to kill you, and
told you they were going to kill you.
They're going to kill you, and that's not true, and that's not what we're saying. But you've got to remember that plants have to have defense mechanisms against things that are going to eat them.
Absolutely.
So these are their defense mechanisms. So when we eat them, they can impact our health if we don't sort of destroy some of these anti-nutrients, and so we can absorb the amino acids from them. So the good news is a lot of it can be cooked out if you cook them, so that will reduce these anti-nutrients. But some of them can't. So that will impact their bioavailability and digestibility. So that's one thing. So you can cook them out. So and then the other thing is the amino acid profile.
Oh yeah, what's that?
So protein. So obviously, as we said, most proteins are made from 20 amino acids, right? Okay. So the body can produce 11 of them, and we need 9 from the diet. So the 9 obviously are the essential amino acids. So muscle building, protein synthesis. Building muscle requires that protein muscle synthesis exceeds protein muscle breakdown, right? Which makes sense.
Yes.
Right. So that results in a net accumulation of muscle protein. So all 20 amino acids are required to build muscle tissue, but protein muscle synthesis is stimulated primarily by essential amino acids in your food, and plant proteins are lower in essential amino acids, as we said.
Facts, yeah.
So therefore they have a higher they're higher in non-essential amino acids, which means that protein synthesis can be a little bit lower than with animal proteins, if that made sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
We have got some, and we can put the link
charts here. Yeah, this is great.
Study, some charts.
Yeah,
and Matt can put them up. And they basically just show the first one is the bioavailability of plant-based versus animal proteins.
Yep. Which is high generally?
Well, the animal proteins generally are higher. And then the amino acid profile as well.
That's a good
plants.
one.
Yeah, this one is you can actually see quite a difference in the amino acid amino acid profile of animal-based proteins compared to plant-based proteins. Animal-based proteins quite a lot higher.
Like just picking on wheat proteins, it's got less than 30%.
Yeah.
And then you've got like whey, which is above 50. So it's almost doubly as good with the essentials and that sort of thing. So it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, exactly.
So and there's nothing, as I said, nothing wrong with eating wheat proteins, things like gluten, which are problems in themselves. Well, podcasts on them. We're not fans of that. But hemp, for example, that's just above 30. In the big scale, about 34% by looking at the chart. So
and hemp's a good point.
Oh, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with eating these things. It's just to be aware that these aren't going to be... When we say quality, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that it's not as high with the essential amino acids.
It just means you have to work harder to get your diet balanced and have to think a little bit more than if you were just eating a piece of meat and not worrying about it because it's got all the essential amino acids in it. So plant proteins are particularly are low in leucine.
Yeah,
and this amino acid is super important, as we've talked about before, is it sort of signals, it's basically a signal to turn on the anabolic signaling pathways.
Yes.
So which improves muscle protein synthesis. Even though all the essential amino acids are needed for that, leucine is very important.
Switches on.
So leucine content of plant foods is lower.
They are.
Primarily than animal proteins. And that's super important. So leucine is super important. So how do we fix this for somebody that's on a plant-based diet?
Well, that's $1 million question. How do we fix someone's on a plant-based diet? What do we do?
So, I mean, we've heard of food combining, as we said. So, combining grains and legumes to create complete proteins. So I have an example here, Steve.
Go for it.
So I'm going to read this. So cereal grains, so wheat and rice are low in lysine, and nuts and seeds are also low in lysine primarily. Beans and legumes are low in methionine and cysteine.
Yeah.
Pea and soy have lots of lysine.
Yes.
And rice has lots of methionine and cysteine. And corn has lots of leucine.
It has loads of leucine. I was surprised.
So what you can do is you can start to pair some of these together to create a good amino acid profile.
Yeah.
And that's where that food combining comes in. And it is a little bit different than it used to be. You don't have to have, say a grain and a legume with each meal.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, as long as you're getting them all in there somewhere throughout the day, then that's the main thing.
That's it.
But you have to really be all over this if you're on a plant-based diet and you want to have optimal health. Yeah. So you need to really look at which grains and which legumes and things you should be having in your diet to get that good amino acid profile.
Okay, Craig, absolutely really important information for vegans out there. Because let's face it, if you're having an omnivorish diet, eating meat once or twice a day, when I say meat, it could be fish, chicken, whatever, turkey, you're basically going to get all your essentials.
Well, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the difference. So, you just have to think about it a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong with being plant-based if you want to be plant-based, but really do your research or see somebody who can design a balanced diet so you're going to get these full amino acid profiles to help your overall health.
And you mentioned something about, leucine and growth and all that sort of thing. And because there are proteins that talk to genes and enzymes in your body because a lot of people are listening to this wanting protein to build muscle. Yeah. So there are lots of genes in your body that are switched on by certain proteins. So there's a great paper here in the Frontiers of Physiology, which is so biochemical. It's 2022. It's called Supplementation of Specific Collagen Peptides Following High Load Resistance Exercise Upregulates Gene Expression in pathways involved in skeletal muscle growth. Hey, can you believe that?
No.
It tells specific collagen peptides.
Yeah.
Talks to the genes of the body and tells the genes to switch on muscle growth. Isn't that remarkable?
It is remarkable. It's amazing.
I mean, I'm going to hold this up to the camera of the biochemical pathways. This is one of them.
We won't go through
Look
the
at that.
whole pathway.
That's absolutely nuts. That's one pathway, and that's another pathway. And then you've got a similar one like this. So this pathway will start with his mTOR, mammalian targeted rapamycin
We talked
complex.
about quite a bit before.
And so when you ingest collagen, it tells the body to upregulate mTOR, which stimulates muscle growth.
Yeah.
And that's what some proteins like this one, I love this protein. This is a body balance protein, it's called. And this actually switches on this enzyme to grow muscles, as well as it has the amino acid to do it, but the actual protein switches it on too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the 3 muscle growth pathways. Most people know that now, and they take branch chains for that. And I'm drinking that now. Not that I need bigger muscles. Jesus, they're huge.
I'd pull them back a bit if
They're
I were you.
massive. I can barely get
through the door.
It's just huge, you know.
That's right.
All the girls are chatting me up at the gym all the time. It's disgraceful. You know,
Yes.
Nic can't keep her eyes off my arms. I couldn't say that with a straight face. That's just not true. Oh, Beck's all over me at night. She's, oh, God, you're muscly every night. She says that to me. No, she doesn't at all ever. So there is another pathway. So that's the mTOR one that everyone knows about.
Yeah.
There's phosphoinositide 3 kinase pathway for muscle growth, and collagen does that as well, and it stimulates it and tells it, again, that pathway to build muscle. And in this particular study, there's one more pathway, because the AMPK pathway, adenosine monophosphate kinase pathway, and that, again, tells it to... So you've got to remember, all proteins are not created equal.
No.
This, if you want the muscle growth, because I believe a lot of people are listening to us want more muscle growth, then this is a good protein to ingest to grow muscles beyond the amino acid complex. There's good amino acids in there as well, because, you know, you've got collagen in your muscles.
Yep.
You haven't got any whey in your muscles.
No.
You know, it's collagen. So this is collagen. So it has those sorts of things. Also good for your gut and all the other crap that we've talked about before.
Hair, skin, nails as well.
Hair, skin, nails. And I love this because they compared it to a placebo after exercise. And I'll just show you the graph of these enzymes upregulated, because you exercise, you get upregulation, but when you add collagen to it, you get this super physiological response of upregulation compared to a placebo. Yeah. So it really does grow those enzymes. So I like these sort of things if you're interested in growing muscle.
Yeah.
So, you know, I like collagen for all sorts of reasons, but that's another reason to love collagen. Because of the pathways. I love it. It's fantastic.
It's great. It's amazing, isn't it?
So, Nic, you're in practice. Let's say you've got someone in front of you, and I actually a staff member here asked me a question yesterday because a vegan wrote in saying that she was lacking essentially on she's taking one of our products. But anyway, so she was on a very low protein diet and was diagnosed as being malnourished. So let's say you're trying to give someone a meal in your clinic, a daily plan, just give some suggestions that you would give this person to get their protein essentials, all the protein levels up to scratch. What sort of meals would they be eating?
So what I say is a base before we even look at specific amounts of protein. I just say as a base, 30 grams of protein per meal. For a female.
Yep.
A little bit more for a male.
Yep.
So 30 grams at breakfast, 30 grams at lunch, 30 grams at dinner. And that's just a good start. You don't have to think too much about it. So that could be something like, 3 eggs for breakfast, or you could have 2 eggs and a couple of egg whites if you don't want to do the full yolks. Some people do, some people don't. And this is something that people balk a little bit about. And I've just started doing this, and I'm still getting used to it. But meat for breakfast. I'm starting to do meat because I need to increase my protein a little bit at breakfast because, different stages of your life, you need to change things around based on what's happening hormonally.
And you're at 27, 28. So.
Yeah, I'm 28, so I'm sort of mid on my... No, I'm in the next phase. So our blood sugar levels then become a factor. So you want to be balanced, and we can talk about what protein helps with that sort of thing as well. But having good sources of protein for breakfast. So a lot of people may have a smoothie, something like that, and that's fine. And if you want to put your protein in there, I do. I put my collagen protein in my smoothie. but I find that my blood sugar spikes a bit too much from that. So I need something a little bit more substantial. But meat can be a good breakfast for some people. So,
Sure.
you could do like a savoury mince. You could do whatever you've had for dinner the night before. You can have some of that for breakfast.
Sure. Plant breakfast, you mentioned a smoothie. I know people put like brown rice in smoothie.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a... it can be problematic, but these are the sorts of ways you can get protein up, or you can have like a fried piece of tofu or whatever you want for breakfast like that.
Yeah.
If you're a vegan and you want to focus on protein, or you could have a low protein breakfast, or, I've seen people have Greek yogurt if they're vegan, but they're vegetarian.
Yeah.
And they may want to eat eggs as well. So,
so
you can certainly do it.
You can do it. And that's one thing to premise if you're having a plant-based protein. Look for one that's pea and a rice mix.
Yeah.
Because that gives you the full amino acid profile, like
that's
you said,
a
with
good
the
point.
combining. Yeah. So you can do that. And then lunch and dinner are, as you say, fairly similar. So some sort of proteins, whether that be chicken, meat, fish, tofu, tempeh, if you're having plant-based, that sort of thing, or your combination of your grain and your legume. And some vegetables.
Yeah.
And then obviously put your carbohydrates in to match for your needs. And then the same for dinner. So, but you base, and we've talked about this before, you base your meal around your protein. So your protein is the most important. So minimum 30 grams, and then you can work out optimal for your own needs, goals, weight, all that sort of thing. Each meal. So I find that that's super easy to get your head around. And if you're plant-based and you work out what it is that you need to combine, so make sure you're getting that in there throughout the day, that's a really good starting point. And then, you can work on your protein intake needs based on your goals, whether you want to build muscle, when you want to lose weight, maintain, that type of thing, and then you build it around that. So, and then you can have your snacks in there as well. So you can do
which can be protein-based.
Protein-based. You can do, a little tin of tuna. You can do a handful of nuts, which have protein in them as well. They're not just fats.
Yeah.
So it's actually not that hard to get a baseline for that sort of thing. So,
and we haven't even mentioned supplementation.
No, we haven't.
We haven't mentioned that you can just have a shake of some description. Because especially in the afternoon, you sort of peckish some people.
Yeah.
And you just, you want to eat something. And let's say it's something sweet. You get that sweet craving. These proteins are sweet because they're sweetened.
Yeah.
Don't get the ones with sucralose or a sulfonamide potassium.
And awful
Gee, I saw a protein yesterday that's very popular. I won't mention its brand name, but it's got colour 102 in it, which is tartrazine.
Oh, no, that's not good.
And it's sweetened with a sulfonamide K and sucralose.
Oh, goodness.
And it's a very popular whey protein on the market.
Okay.
I couldn't believe tartrazine. That freaked me out a little bit.
I can't believe they're still putting tartrazine in anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get it. It's in twisties or whatever. They got all the, because it's a junk food. But proteins, you just be careful about that. And this is a whey protein. It's, I would have to say one of the most popular whey proteins on the market. I won't mention the name of it, but it's on the label. It's not, I'm making up a conspiracy thing. It's literally on the label.
Yeah.
So be careful of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And if you're making a protein shake,
Yep.
Again, depending on your needs, post-workout, things like that. But a lot of people will put a shake, they'll put lots of fruits and things in them. And then they become quite high in carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates. So just be careful about when you're having what protein shake for what. If it's post-workout, yes, high sugar is fine. If you're just having it as a snack, make sure it's a little bit lower in sugar. Make sure you've got your protein in there. So, so that's a super easy way to start to get your protein needs met. I have got a little saying, and it's not my saying. I've heard it, but I love it.
Claim it, Nick. Say it's yours. Lie.
So the saying, you are what you eat?
Yes.
It shouldn't really be you are what you eat. It should be you are what you digest.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So when we're talking about protein and any sort of nutrient that we need to absorb, we need to first be able to digest it, to be able to absorb it. And so you want to have, and particularly if you're not plant-based, if you're eating animal-based proteins, can be a little bit harder to break down than vegetables and things in some cases, although legumes can be a little bit difficult as well. You want to have good amounts of acids and enzyme production to digest it.
That's true.
So, if you're a little bit protein deficient and you're eating protein, maybe look at, are you actually digesting well? Because if you're not, you're not going to be able to break down those protein structures to absorb the amino acids.
That's a good point.
So that's a really important thing for people to remember. And we've gone through this in so many other podcasts, apple cider vinegar can be a good start. You can do hydrochloric acid if you need to, and then your digestive enzymes is another part of it, and then stress management around eating. So all of those things have to be part of a healthy diet because there's no point having a healthy diet if you can't digest it and absorb it.
That's a great point.
So I just wanted to put that in there. And then, some of the populations that really need to be very mindful of their protein intake. So obviously plant-based, we've said that. Older populations, as we've said in the beginning. So a few different reasons why as you get older you need more protein. One, particularly older people, they do eat less protein because, one, it's harder to digest. It sits in their stomach, that type of thing. And that's because as we get older, our stomach acid reduces. So therefore it's harder to digest these things. So we need to work on digestive function for older people and then increase their protein. So, when we were talking about, say, average around 2 grams to protein per person, you're looking at up to even 4 as you're getting older.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Yeah, so that's something that people don't really think about. And then postmenopausal women, this is another one, and I see this all the time in clinic. They're eating very low amounts because they have weight problems.
They do. They tend to put on weight.
They tend to put on weight, and that's because they lose those female sex hormones. They get imbalances. The blood sugar imbalances become quite significant. Stress hormones, that sort of thing, are a lot more unbalanced. So they're putting on weight. So they're eating less and less, and they're eating less protein as well, whereas they actually need to eat a lot more protein because we also lose muscle at a much faster rate postmenopausally because estrogen is anabolic, so we're losing the estrogen. So protein levels need to go up postmenopausally as well, which a lot of women don't really think about. Sorry, guys, but I had to put that in there as well.
Yeah.
So that's really important. So to make sure that their protein needs are met, and that's something a lot of people aren't doing in those populations. And also younger women possibly who are watching their weight that are under eating, then they can become malnourished, as you said. And then also people who are unwell. So, and I see this a lot too, thyroid conditions. People really need to nourish their body because the thyroid is a protein structure as well. You need to nourish your body, have a good amount of proteins in your diet. When you're recovering from illness, if you have thyroid conditions, that type of thing, you need to have good levels of protein. So that's something to remember for those populations as well. Super important.
Wow.
Outside of athletes and that sort of
stuff. Because we only think of the bodybuilders and that.
Yeah.
And the trick. Look, this is where supplements can be useful. Let's say you're old and you don't feel like having proteins. And full disclosure, we're ATP Science. We sell protein. We're food first. We're naturopaths, always. But as a supplement, you can just drink some of this stuff and just goes down easily and it tastes good. It's got benefits, but it's all natural. I don't want to flog protein powders here, but I'd rather be food first. But for people who can't, this is when you can supplement.
Well, that's it, and that's where supplements really play their part. Like you said, some people just can't do the food, or some people just can't. They can't consume that amount of protein if they're not used to it in one hit. So that's where protein powders can be really beneficial to sort of slot in where they can still get their protein intake. As you said, it's all pre-digested, so it's very easily absorbed. Yeah. So they definitely can be really useful. It
reminds me of Ronnie Coleman. I saw an interview with him where he was struggling to get his 600 to 800 grams of protein a day.
Oh my God.
So he said that's where he had to drink all the protein powders, and you go through a tub or two every sort of week or so, extraordinarily amounts of these large things because, but I mean, we were not talking that's excessive, but just one drink a day. And it's really, it's not that expensive. You could blend it with some berries if you want some, or something like that. Definitely. So it's really lots of tricks there, but that's great. That's a really good suggestion about how to get more protein in your age. And if you're pregnant.
Yes, I didn't put the pregnancy one in there for pregnant ladies because I don't treat pregnant people, so I didn't put it in there. Isn't that terrible?
Don't worry about it.
But their protein needs definitely increased.
Yeah, well, they're growing another human body.
Yeah, exactly. And also during breastfeeding, obviously, needs increase. Anything that is going to deplete your body, you need to increase your protein. So whether that be pregnancy, breastfeeding, illness, all of that
illness
sort of thing.
is important because you've got to make all these antibodies out of protein.
That's right.
Severe burns get
Yes.
they've I mean, that's a very small population, but even sunburn, if you get sunburn, you got to repair your body from that. You go to the gym and disgracefully destroy your body. It's got to rebuild with protein.
No, protein is a repair. It's a repair macronutrient. So you've got to think of that. And detox, which I do bang on about a little bit because there are so many more plant-based people now. And if they don't have, as I said, a balanced diet, they really do. I see a lot more of them with issues.
And antioxidant, because glutathione, the potent antioxidant, is made of cysteine, glutamine, and glycine.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a potent antioxidant.
Yeah, and we produce glutathione. It's our master antioxidant, but it's depleted so easily in a toxic world and if you have illness and things like that. So you really want to make sure you're giving your body the best chance to give them the precursors to glutathione as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome, Nic.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all we've got time for, but what an incredible story. We've told people how to boost their protein if you're a vegan, which is the ones we're concerned about. And if you're not a vegan and you're eating animal proteins a couple of times a day, you should be all right. But if you've got these, if you're aging or you're pregnant or you're something, go to the gym, exercise, you need more protein.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the general population probably need more than they think as well. And we try to get that across too, that you can be protein adequate but not protein optimal. And you want to be optimal.
You want to be
optimal health.
We're all about optimal health, not just getting by.
Yeah.
And RDIs are not exactly...
No, they're the minimum to survive. They're not for thriving, RDIs. Yeah. We thought we'd sort of give a basic for people sort of still getting their head around protein and what to do, what not to do.
And if you're sick and you got fevers, you need more protein to make more immune. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do another one on what roles the amino acids like.
Yeah, we're going to break down all the amino acids, which is going to be super interesting. So that will be coming up down the track.
Yeah, they're sort of little medicines on their own, aren't they?
They are.
We're not going to give too much away.
No, that's going to be fun.
All right, Nic, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
See ya.